Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we are going to be doing an autumn set of acrylic nails using the CJP acrylic system. Now I'm going to jump straight into this design. I am working on my red iguana practice hand and I'm just working straight over the top of some nail tips. I would recommend, if you were doing this on yourself, to pop a thin layer of clear acrylic down, as this is what I would normally do if I was working on my own nails, but I didn't see the need today because we were working directly on top of these full cover nail tips. So we're going to be doing a marble on this first nail, and I'm going to go in with all four of the colors that I'm going to be using in this set. I completely forgot to record what colors we're going to be using, so let me just run through them now. The nude core color we're using is Obsession, and then we're going to be using Hot Ember, Blushed Bronze and Copper Penny, and then also some glitter. So we're going to be using the chocolate orange mix from Charlie's Nail Art. I do also have a discount code for Charlie's, which I will leave in the description box below. And then I'm also going to be using some leafy glitter sequins, which I've had absolutely ages and I have no clue anymore where they are from. So onto the marble, I'm just placing down small wet beads of acrylic and then pulling my brush through them to marble those colours together. Now, depending on how you want your marble to look, you're going to work with your acrylic slightly different. If you want a more defined look, then I usually use more larger beads of acrylic. However, if you want the colors to swell together like they have here, I prefer to use smaller beads of acrylic. Just coming in with 2 at the end here just to fully cover that entire nail. Now, a lot of the CJP colors are strength powders, so they don't necessarily need to be encapsulated. However, I am going to be encapsulating all of the nails that I'm doing today because we're going to be using a lot of glitter, a lot of design work. So when I'm working with acrylic like that, I like to keep my design as thin as possible and then encapsulate. The great thing is though, is if you do build up the nail with your strength colors, you don't necessarily have to worry too much about applying a thicker encapsulation layer. So on this now, I did want to add in just a hint of glitter. I really liked how pretty the marble turned out, so I didn't want to cover it up too much. So I'm just going to press these glitter pieces and the leafy sequins down into that tacky layer of acrylic. It is still wet enough to push these down into, and they will set in place ready to be encapsulated. It's quite cold at the moment, and when the temperature is colder, your acrylic will set slower. If I was doing this in summer and I felt as though the acrylic underneath had already dried, then I would just use a small wet bead of clear acrylic to pop these down and hold them in place. Like I said, I really loved how this marble turned out. I really loved this selection of colors. On to the next nail, I'm going to be doing a glitter fade where the core color comes over the top of the glitter. So I wanted the glitter to have a little bit of a background because it is a fairly chunky mix, so there's not any fine pieces in there, and I didn't want you to be able to see the nail tip through the glitter. So I'm starting off by painting on a very thin layer of the Copper Penny, then picking up a small bead of clear acrylic, dipping into my raw glitter and mixing that together on the nail. And then I'm just going to keep picking up small beads of clear acrylic and then going into that glitter mix until I'm happy with how well this glitter has covered the tip of the nail. And then just flipping my brush around and slowly, gently fading that back so that we haven't got a harsh line where that glitter ends. When you're doing any kind of ombre, you want to make sure you're blending it back, whether it be your colored acrylic or your glitter. I'm trying to keep this fairly thin, so if I feel as though I just need to tap on a little bit of glitter in places, I will do so without picking up any additional acrylic. But this was looking a little bit sparse in coverage, so I did end up coming in with another small bead of clear acrylic, dipping into that glitter just so I could get full-on sparkles down on the nails. I have been playing around with acrylic a little bit off camera. I haven't done too many acrylic nail videos just because I kind of got out of the swing of doing acrylic and I found it quite hard to pick back up again, but it's always been my favorite medium to work with in nails, so I thought it was time to get some videos back up on the channel. And autumn is my favorite time of the year, especially for nails, so I thought it was the perfect time to get back into the swing of doing acrylic videos. So now I'm going to come in, or I'm going to leave the ring finger to set, because before I come in and blend my core color over the top. I don't want those glitters to start moving around, so I'm going to allow them to set in place. So we're going to move on to the pointer finger, and I'm going to start off with Hot Ember and do an ombre with that. Now the CJP acrylic system does work better with a drier ratio, and I was working with it a little bit too wet here, so my first layer of Hot Ember looks a little bit patchy, so I come in with another bead just to build that color up a little bit. As you can see, I've blended it back. So like I said, with the ring finger, you want to make sure you're blending everything back. You don't want a harsh line. So I have blended it back, but then I've built up the color a little bit more. And then again, I'm going to leave that to set. So we're going to jump back to the ring finger and finish off our ombre. So on this now, I've picked up a medium-sized bead of Obsession, placed it slightly away from the cuticle area, and then I'm tilting the finger downwards so I can push that acrylic up into place at the cuticle area, but the rest of it is going to start flowing down the nail. Because I'm not planning on fully encapsulating the entire nail, you can build up the apex area with your core color. So I'm placing a lot of that product down in the back third and leaving it there so that that builds up our apex, and then I'm just blending it down over the glitter so we get that nice transitional look between the color and the glitter. Now when it comes to encapsulating, I then know that I only need to encapsulate from the fade downwards with my clear acrylic. This is kind of personal preference, it's up to you guys how you do it. You can keep your core color thin and then just fully encapsulate, but I did feel as though this color just needed a little bit more coverage because it is not on the sheer side, but it's not fully opaque either, but it's one of my favorite core colors from CJP. So as you can see, I'm just patting and pressing the acrylic into place. I'm trying to get my application as neat as possible so that there's less finish filing to do at the end of the video, at the end of the design. So whilst that's setting, I'm going to move back to the pointer finger and we're going to finish off our ombre, and this time we're going to go in with the blushed bronze. Now this is a really pigmented color, and where it's got a lot of shimmer in there as well, it does take over the nail a little bit, but I show you guys how I fix that as well. So I'm starting off with a small bead down at the cuticle area, tapping it up into place and then pulling it down the nail, and as you can see, the pigmentation is just insane that it pretty much covered up a lot of that Hot Ember. So I'm going to wipe off some of that excess just using my wet brush to start with, and then I decided it just needed to neaten up that cuticle area a little bit. I had pulled the color down a little bit too much, so I'm going to come in with a small bead, tap it into place at the cuticle and then pull it down, but I'm trying to not pull it down as far as what I did on the previous nail. And then because we have covered up a lot of that Hot Ember, I'm just going to come in with a small bead at the tip of the nail and blend it back, and this is going to create a really beautiful subtle ombre between those two shades. Just tap in those side walls to make sure our acrylic is nice and neat on the edges, and then I've dipped into a bead of clear acrylic and then into my raw glitter, and we're just going to do a really pretty glitter swoosh going across the nail. This is a great design to do as well if you struggle with ombre and maybe you do a set of nails and the ombre is not looking perfect. You can just cover it up with a little bit of glitter and no one would know. Keeping that glitter fairly thin because we are going to encapsulate and we don't want a too thick and bulky nail, but I am just going to add on some small wet beads of clear acrylic so I can stick down 2 little autumn leaves. I did have a comment on YouTube recently asking if I could do a set of nails using the leafy sequins, so I hope you managed to see this video. Moving on to the little finger, I didn't feel as though I had too much of the copper penny showing through in this set of nails, so I decided to do just a full nail of copper penny because this shade is absolutely beautiful, and where it already has that really pretty shimmer to it, it kind of works really well just on its own as a standalone color. So I'm going to paint this on fairly thin and then I'll fully encapsulate this. So when it comes to encapsulating, I'll build up the strength and structure of the nail. Like I said, this is personal preference if you are using a color that is a strength powder. Some colors aren't designed to build up the nail with, so they will need to be encapsulated, and some of them have the strengthening properties in there. So it will depend on the acrylic you're using and sometimes the specific color that you're using. We're going to then come in and encapsulate. So I'm starting off on the middle finger and I'm coming in with a more medium to large bead of acrylic, and it's also on the wet side as well, so that it's going to flow down the nail nicely and not get stuck on any of those acrylic pieces. So I'm placing this down in the back third of the nail, as that's where we're going to build up our apex, and I'm leaving a lot of that product there and just gently feathering down the top of that bead of acrylic, focusing on pushing the side walls in so that we've not got too thick or bulky side walls. And then I'm going to come in with my next bead of acrylic and pretty much do the same. Let that melt into that first bead of acrylic and then blend it down towards the tip of the nail. And then I'm kind of trying to just check from all angles that everything is fully encapsulated. If you do need to come in with another bead of acrylic, this is where you can. I had a little dip off to the side here, so I just come in with a bead of acrylic, placed it down where it was needed, and then blended it into place, doing lots of light feathery strokes so that we don't pull that acrylic around too much, but then also tapping it at the side walls to make sure that we've not got any acrylic coming off the edges of the nail. Moving on, we're going to do the same again on the ring finger. So I'm pressing this bead of acrylic out so there's just a thin layer going over that obsession, because I mainly want to encapsulate this now from the fade down, because we haven't got anything built up there. So I've blended that down, and then I'm going to place my next bead of acrylic into place, melt that in to the previous bead. If you need to blend it back, you can. Where my acrylic was still quite wet, I didn't necessarily need to. And then just tap in and pressing this into place. I'm tilting the finger downwards, which is a little hard to see on the camera, but this is going to help your acrylic flow where it needs to go. Off camera, I then finished off, encapsulated, filed and buffed all of the nails. A lot of the time when I'm working on my red iguana practice hand, or any practice hand I've owned, to be honest, I take all the tips out and file them, just because I feel as though these hands are really expensive and it's really easy to damage them with the file. So just to keep them nice, I tend to just take the tips out and file them out of the hand, if that makes sense. I'll then put them back in and finish off the shaping with the tips in the hand. So once I had filed, buffed, I whizzed over them with a sanding band on my e-file just to make sure everything was nice and even. And then I went in with my 100 grit file, and then I finished off the shaping with my 180 grit file, and then I went over them with my buffer just to make sure that any scratches that were left behind from filing were smoothed out. Then I gave them all a really good clean, wiped over them with a little bit of alcohol to make sure that all of the dust had been removed before we come in and top coat. And then I love this part because when you file and buff the nails, they go quite matte looking, so then you come in with your top coat and everything comes back to life and looks beautiful, especially when you've used lots of glitter. So I'm top coating today using my Kiki London No Wipe top coat. I do have a discount code for Kiki, which I will leave in the description box below. So once I have top coated all of these nails, I'm going to pop this in to cure for 60 seconds, and then I have left a clip and some pictures of the finished set. So I really hope you all enjoyed watching. If there are any particular acrylic designs you would like to see, do let me know in the comments below and I will try give them a go. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, let me know how you guys are all doing, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would absolutely love it if you hit that subscription button. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.